Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe. Thanks for your support on Patreon, Adam and the Anthony Bergeron. Hello and welcome to the WrestleTalk Super News. I'm Ollie Davis. Please press the thumbs up button and give us a subscribe. As part of WWE's $1 billion 5-year deal for SmackDown's move to Fox, plans were also made for a realistic studio show discussing genuine industry news, an idea WWE has often flirted with throughout the years in different formats like Talking Smack, before realizing it wants to control everything and doesn't actually like to report on its own controversies. Saudi Arabia much. After a few special one-off episodes, this new show, imaginatively titled WWE Backstage, properly premiered last Tuesday on FS1. Originally, the show was planned to have Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman announce they're quitting SmackDown and moving to Raw to fight Rey Mysterio, but that angle had to be hot shot to the previous Friday's episode on account of most of the roster getting stuck in Saudi Arabia. But not Brock! Because Brock has a private jet. Instead, WWE Backstage scrambled for a number of other reasons for people to tune in, including the first look at The Fiend's new Universal title design, which just turned out to be his new side plates, John Cena phoning in, and Randy Orton revealing he'd signed a new 5-year deal with WWE. Somehow, all of that didn't translate into viewers, with the show's debut only drawing a shockingly low 49,000 people. So the second episode needed something big to hook people in. Like Pro Wrestling Sheet's Ryan Satin, who's now a correspondent for the show, revealing that Johnny Gargano is ruled out of Survivor Series weekend because of an injury, and that both Paige and The Miz have signed new multi-year deals with WWE. If other recent signees are anything to go by, expect them both to be in cucking angles in the next few months, and then try to request their releases on social media. Oh yeah, and CM Punk turned up. Hannah, CM Punk returned to WWE. He returned.
CM Punk returned! Yes! 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 CM Punk returned! Confirmed. It's happened. Yes! Yes! Oh my God! I'm just running with no purpose. I'm not fit enough to do this. Yes. People are looking at me weird. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's beautiful. CM Punk return confirmed.
CM Punk return confirmed. CM Punk return confirmed. Renee Young, flanked by co-hosts Booker T and Paige, along with guests Adam Cole and the currently out-injured Samoa Joe, started counting down for their own big announcement at the end of the show, where the static hit Living Colour's Cult of Personality started playing, and CM Punk himself walked in through the door, entered the wrestling ring set, and said directly into the camera, "It's as simple as this. Just when they think they got the answers, I changed the culture. I'll see you here next week." So next Tuesday, he just said he'll see us all next Tuesday. It appeared as though the guests were genuinely caught by surprise as Paige here screamed, "No way! Is this a rib? Is this a rib? Holy cow!" But what does it all mean? WWE on Fox's Twitter account semi-explained what Punk will now be doing. Holy S-word, your chants have been answered. CM Punk just showed up on WWE Backstage on FS1. He'll be appearing periodically on the show beginning next Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern. Periodically implying he'll be there every so often as opposed to a permanent position on the show, which WWE corroborated with a statement on their website and an official press release to various news sites. CM Punk, one of the most celebrated WWE superstars of all time, joins the roster of FS1's WWE Backstage beginning next week, Tuesday, November 19th at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Phil Brooks, better known as CM Punk, joins WWE Backstage as a special contributor and analyst. He will make select appearances in studio along alongside host Renee Young and analyst Booker T. The Best in the World joins fellow regular contributors Christian and Paige, as well as new correspondent Ryan Satin on the WWE Backstage rotation. So the CM Punk to WWE return is actually not as a full-time host for WWE Backstage, but more as a part-time role for select appearances. And it's important to note this is for the studio show produced by Fox. Punk isn't actually working directly for WWE right now. After leaving WWE in early 2014 on very bad terms, where he accused them of funding Dr. Chris Amann's defamation lawsuit against him and Colt Cabana, and him getting served his termination papers on his wedding day to then WWE wrestler AJ Lee, totally a coincidence, he's tried out TV presenting with Netflix's Beastmaster, MMA fighting in the UFC, which didn't work out so well, and comic book writing. It seemed his experience working for Vince McMahon had put him off wrestling altogether. But then in April this year, his attitude towards wrestling appeared to thaw. Punk made a surprise appearance at independent wrestling promotion MKE Wrestling under a mask to hit a go to sleep and help his former trainer Ace Steel win his match, as the venue was soon to close down, and it was one where Punk initially started out in his career. After 5 years of seemingly not wanting anything to do with wrestling, this appearance got people excited he might be warming to a potential return. Speculation that only increased when he was announced to headline AEW's partner convention Starrcast 3 in a Q&A with PW Insider's Mike Johnson. If Punk did want to return to wrestling, he could now do so in a potentially very damaging move to WWE in the Wednesday Night Wars. But then Mike Johnson, the same person who led that Q&A, started reporting that Punk had a tryout to be a host for Fox's new WWE studio show. This was corroborated by almost every other wrestling news site, with Fightful and Wrestling Observer also reporting their own versions of the story, with the Observer even claiming he'd been offered the role. But then Fightful reported at the end of October that Fox executives seemed like they'd moved on from Punk. And then Punk himself said in an interview while promoting his new movie that he hadn't heard anything from the network since his audition. So what might have happened? There are two possible stories here. One, that Punk was just doing a worky McWork face, the technical term for throwing people off the scent, and the plan was always for him to make his return on WWE Backstage. Or two, the premiere episode performed so poorly, Fox panicked and brought Punk in. Remember, that episode drew a shockingly low 49,000 viewers, a terrible number for its debut, and around the same time that SmackDown has been slipping significantly in the ratings for Fox on Friday nights, with the show dropping over 1 million viewers since its own premiere on the channel on October 4th, with the 25th of October episode getting a cataclysmic 888,000 viewers when it was bumped to FS1 because of the World Series, the lowest rating for either Raw or SmackDown in history. Because if Punk was always the plan for WWE Backstage, why not bring him back on the show's premiere? Renee Young initially teased a huge news guest for last week's debut, but that was reportedly supposed to be Brock Lesnar announcing he was quitting SmackDown to go to Raw, an angle that had to be moved to SmackDown itself because of the Saudi Arabia travel situation. So if you had that big angle bumped, why not bring Punk back there? Perhaps Punk was actually dropped as a host like Fightful reported at the end of October, potentially because of WWE pushing back on it, as he supposedly impressed everyone at Fox in auditions, but now Fox have demanded it in the face of low ratings. That's just my speculation there, going off what's been reported. But what does this mean for an actual in-ring return for Punk in WWE? As previously mentioned, WWE Backstage is a Fox-produced show, much like how the WWE 2K series is a 2K-produced video game. Fox and 2K are the ones in charge there, not WWE, although they work very closely together and wouldn't want to annoy each other. But even if Punk is only back working for WWE through Fox, it brings up the very real possibility that he could eventually make a wrestling return for WWE. Vince McMahon has a pattern of behavior where once previously ousted wrestlers have returned through an external company first, like with Sting and Goldberg being featured in the WWE 2K games, it's foreshadowed Vince agreeing a deal for them to return to the main roster, especially with Triple H saying in recent interviews, "Never say never clever about a full in-ring comeback for Punk, and that Vince McMahon could be open to the idea. If that's the case, it's rather a shame Punk's long-awaited return was at the end of a FS1 studio show high-fiving Renee Young, and not in front of thousands of fans in a big angle to close Raw, SmackDown, or a pay-per-view. What do you think of CM Punk's return? Let me know in the comments, because I'll be replying to people for the first 30 minutes after this video goes live. Speaking of Fox and SmackDown, we're still trying to figure out the best way to cover the show on Saturdays here on WrestleTalk. So we thought we'd cut out the guessing game and ask the SWAF Nation directly. Click that eye above my head to vote whether you want SmackDown WrestleTalk live reviews on Saturday, as they currently are with Pete and Just Dave, or 2 days later on Monday with me, Luke, or Laurie. Did WWE edit out the negative crowd reaction to Seth Rollins on this week's Raw? Find out by clicking the video on the right. And yet another WWE star has tried to quit. Click the video below that to find out what's happened. I've been Ollie Davis, and that was wrestling.